Okay. Look, I talked about this on Sunday brunch, but there's been a bit of a fallout. Now, I understand people don't like the Twitch kick drama. I get it. But I look at this environment, and I think I'm one of the few people in independent media to really look at the streamer universe, right? Because it does have consequences for the rest of us. Now, I have my criticisms of Hasan Piker. I really do. And I understand there's people that like him, there's people that hate him. And I understand right now there seems to be some trouble with Hasan's orbiters who are right now in a legal fight against Klein. Klein has filed lawsuits against some of these people who have really crossed the line. All right. But Hasan recently made a very interesting statement about, he didn't say her name specifically, but who else is it? I mean, put two and two together. It's kind of directed, not kind of, it is, sorry, pointed at possibly Eason's wife. Now, I have made it clear on the show, I don't support any type of violence. I don't like any kind of talk about that. I want everyone to live their best lives. And I think that this is getting ridiculous now, especially from Hasan Piker, who even did a very cringe GQ photo op. Okay. Let's go and pull this up here.
And every type of armed resistance against both the settlers and also the Israeli occupying force in the West Bank. Doesn't matter if it's your favorite podcasters like wife.
Podcaster's wife. Who is he talking about? Who is he talking about? Who is he talking about? There's only one person it could be directed to, and he's currently beefing with. I mean, who else? Read between the lines. I'm 150% certain.
West Bank. Doesn't matter if it's your favorite podcasters like wife that participate in these raids. The violence that the Palestinians engage in an act of resistance against this illegal occupying force is literally legal, definitionally legal. Okay? It's just the truth. And every type of armed resistance against.
Now, I want to just say this. Okay. He decided to backpedal a little bit on this.
That's crazy. It is what it is, I guess. The resistance against this illegal occupying force is literally legal, definitionally legal. Okay? It's just the truth. And
no, it's not. If somebody attacks Hila Klein, they're going to go to jail.
Yeah. And I want to pull this up here too, because he responds to Hila Klein's Instagram story.
Hasan Piker was exposed by my husband to be discussing creepers retaliated by calling for violence against me. Think back and you'll notice a trend. When he wants to get at Ethan, he attacks me. This is just another glimpse into the psyche of a man who does not see women as equal. Okay, dude. This is literally...
Now, I just want to just stop here and say this. You know, they were once good friends. They did a show called Leftovers. Now, I understand people can have a falling out and a breakup. You know, it happens. It happens a lot. But this is also a comment on just how crazy this YouTube streamer life is getting. I mean, we've covered stories about how you have unhinged fans attacking content creators, be they, you know, regular entertainment creators on Twitch or Kick, YouTube or Rumble, only fools models. Yes, they've been attacked, and even YouTubers. We even covered stories how one YouTuber beef really got out of control to where a couple of stories in which there was straight up shootings happening. The internet is an area in which you have a lot of unhinged people, and you have diehard fans who believe and clinch onto every single word that their favorite commentator or content creator is saying. And to which I have to say to my audience, I'm very glad that we have a bunch of critical thinkers here and people who do not say, oh, we obey every single order you say, Kit, which on the one hand, oh, that'd be cool. But on the other hand, I'm glad that's not the case. I'm glad I have people who can call me out on my bull. I'm glad I have people who can be critical of me. I'm glad I have people who will challenge me and tell me to do more and be better. That's why I think I have a very good audience here. I have an audience of critical thinkers, and I will never tolerate anyone doing anything in any action for Hard Lens Media. I mean, I expect people to be leaders in their own right, and I encourage all of you to look at other different sources and information. That's what I expect, always. That's what I expect from this community. But there's a little bit of a fallout. Now, this recently was dropped by Legal Mindset about the words that Hasan did say. So let's play this.
Klein's wife, Hila Klein. We'll talk about today on the Legal Mindset. We teach you to be your own judge. Of course, I'm Andrew Esquire, American attorney, commenting on the latest in legal news. And of course, this is the Fast Facts version, the quick and dirty version of the latest in legal news. If you like the format and like the topic, please let me know in the comments below and like the video. So today we're getting into yet another comment by one Hasan Piker, who has made it kind of his profession of making statements on the internet that draw the line, that really are dancing on the line between free speech and illegality. And this is something he's become very, very adept at just dancing across this line. So today we're going to get into a particular instance where he deemed the wife of podcaster Ethan Klein, Hila Klein, a quote unquote valid military target. Now, whether or not this is illegal really dances on the fact and the context of how he intended that. So we're going to talk about the two different intentions that he could have had, one of which is likely criminal and one of which is likely not criminal. So we're going to get into that today. So let me get into this video and the reaction from some people, such as Asmongold here, to the deeming of Hila Klein, once again, wife of podcaster Ethan Klein, as a valid military target. So let's get into this reaction so you can kind of see the two perspectives.
Now I do want to fast forward a little bit on here, okay? So here we go. Let's talk a little bit about it.
Hasan has made edgy statements. He's brought people on the podcast, on his podcast, that are indeed questionable. We have, of course, here, as we call him, Timothy Chalamet, or wannabe Luffy over here, a guy who may or may not be affiliated with a designated terrorism group. Certainly he cosplays and dresses up like he is, but perhaps he's denied he is part of it, etc. But one way or another, Hasan is no stranger to having people on his podcast that at least represent in their external image or project an image of being aligned with a Western designated, rather globally designated. Most developed countries have designated these individuals as terrorists. So
I want to stop here and pull up another segment here, because this is where we get up the points, right? Because I think there's a couple of things here that I want to pull up here. So first of all, valid military target. Hasan Piker described the wife of Ethan Klein, Hila Klein, as a valid military target. Hila Klein became a U.S. citizen in 2019, very public naturalization. All clips, again, must be taken in full context, and Hasan inconsistency bounces from present and past tense.
Saying the terrorist groups, and he lists off a whole bucket list of terrorist groups or designated terrorist groups, etc., and says any of those people targeting this person would be a valid military target. Now, the problem here is that Hila Klein, the wife of Ethan Klein, became a U.S. citizen in 2019. There was a very public naturalization process, which was put on YouTube. It's plastered everywhere. You can find out that she became a U.S. citizen in 2019. Therefore, in present year, 2025, that would be a U.S. citizen. So there is a little bit of a question about targeting a current U.S. citizen by foreign forces or directing threats towards a current U.S. citizen. That is the core of the problem. However, all clips must be taken in full context. And for disclosure, I did watch the entire segment. So while I'm just showing you a portion, because I want to keep this a quick video, I did watch the entire segment. And I always try to be professional and objective, and I put my feelings aside, which once again, I can care less one way or another about Hasan. I really do not lose sleep at night because of Hasan Piker. However, there are ways to take this that are favorable to Hasan and disfavorable to Hasan, even within that context. And the problem is that Hasan has an inconsistency, and this inconsistency is bouncing from present to past tense. And in present tense, he may very well be a criminal, but in past tense, he may have an arguable defense. So let's talk about past versus present. Of course, here we got past Hasan eating cake with a spoon, and of course his present GQ shoot, which everyone was such a big fan of. And of course, he both posted, these are both pictures he posted himself openly, so this is not secret information here. But we're going to talk about the difference. So let's get into present tense. So present tense is where the criminality kind of becomes a problem. Because if Hasan intended, his intention with that statement, or the overall context of that, or the overall meaning was Hila Klein is currently a valid military target, or if he intended that Hila Klein was in the past and still remains a valid military target, that is a massive problem. If this was the intention, it's a problem, because that would likely be a criminal terroristic threat. Now, terroristic threat is a broad term. There is no one specific law that is the only terroristic threat law. There are a lot of laws that can involve in that, because
Now, I want to pause here for a second here, okay? Because look, what Legal Mindset's breaking down, and he does do a very fantastic job of at least addressing the concept of what Hasan was saying. Now, this isn't the first time Hasan's found himself in hot water, especially when he made very questionable statements about the lives of one U.S. House representative and one U.S. senator, one being a Democrat, one being a Republican. Now, I can have my criticism of politicians, but the thing is, you know, when you are a influencer or somebody of absolute, I don't know, you're on top of the mountain, you got millions and millions of views, millions and millions of subscribers, millions and millions of supporters, you know, you got to remember, out of those millions, there's going to be some that are just have built a parasocial relationship with you and will become very parasitic and are not mentally well in the head. It has happened, and we've seen it come in one form or another. Just because everything's on the internet now doesn't mean it never existed before. It existed way back in antiquity with play troops. You had that with the radio. You had that with television, cable, etc. Even movie stars back in the day, before we knew how cringe movie stars were, they had their stalkers. They had their most diehard fans. You know, and same thing with intellectual properties. You have people who are straight up diehard fans, will fight tooth and nail, will fight a person if they ever say anything wrong about their favorite actor or actress or anything else in that matter. All right. And so on the internet, though, it's a problem because, you know, on the internet, emotions run high. Chat groups can become very hot. And then you got the flame war. You got fire, 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 fire. And things just get out of control really fast. And I just want to fast forward it now to the past tense, to what Legal Mindset has been addressing.
Because if Hasan intended to say that Hila Klein was, past tense, a valid military target in the past, or he intended to say Hila Klein was, but is no longer a valid military target, that is arguably free speech and defensible. Now, I know some people may have a problem with that and may think, okay, well, it's disgusting, it's immoral. Yes, but even disgusting things, immoral things can technically be free speech. People are free to say things that you disagree with, even vehemently disagree with, even strongly disagree with, even think are disgusting. Those aren't necessarily illegal. And when I say defensible, I mean defensible legally. So if he was brought to court, the charges were brought up, and this is the intention, the thing is, international law, the thing that he loves to talk about and pretend he's an expert in, that is arguable and ambiguous every single way. And one of the reasons why a lot of these people like to talk geopolitics is you can argue whatever, and there's always going to be something to justify it. If you dig in international law, which I've deeply studied and done many, many courses on, you can make up an argument every way. And in every modern conflict, every single modern conflict, you can look at the existing on the books international law and say, you know what? I can argue this as self-defense, or I can argue this as justified, or I can argue this as a war crime. There's ability to argue it every single way. And as we say, often the victor, or the people that are perceived as the victor, get to spin that narrative under international law their way. And that's just how it goes, whether we like it or not, which is why a lot of people like to talk about this, because they can pull up any argument and just kind of make it that way. But I would give a warning. that if you are ever brought up on war crimes at The Hague or UN, etc., if you're dragged into the tribunal, please do not hire Hasan Piker to defend you. He is not qualified to defend you at these bodies. Although the thing is about many of these tribunals is a lot of times, especially on the state level, on the national level, they really have toothless enforcement. They rely on self-enforcement or rely on the countries to go ahead with the criminal enforcement, etc. So they're kind of hard to enforce. But that said, I still wouldn't hire Hasan Piker to defend you. So what's my conclusion here? My conclusion is Hasan can reasonably argue the statement was in past tense. He can say, hey, look, this was a past tense statement, and therefore he's unlikely to be convicted. That means thrown in jail as a form of terroristic threat. Of course, guys, on this channel, I call balls and strikes. I don't say, hey, this person's going to jail forever if it's not a situation where it is. And this is simply one where you cannot convict Hasan beyond a reasonable doubt that that was a terroristic threat. It's just not possible. However, for those that want to sit out there and say, oh, but Hasan makes me angry, there are some other points that you should bring, that I can bring up. It is possible there could be investigation. Sure, law enforcement could look.
So I want to pause here again. Like, look, again, because we could break this thing all down. It's not the first time Hasan has said something to get him in trouble. It's not the first time Hasan Piker has ever said anything that's going to cause issues. Okay, so first of all, major shout out to Legal Mindset. You know, he's been really breaking down a lot of this stuff, and he's been doing a great work, especially with the Johnny Somali and Vitelli situations taking place. One in South Korea, the other in the Philippines. But when we look at the statements that Hasan has said, you know, is this going to get Hasan in trouble? He might get a one-day ban on Twitch, like it always happens, and then he gets reinstated. I mean, that's just a common fact. But I am growing concerned that the more this thing escalates, especially between him, Ethan's lawsuits against the people around Hasan, it's going to blow back on us, everybody else in the YouTube sphere, in the media sphere. And while people may not find this all engaging, the bigger issue is that there could be more guidelines put in place, more censorship. And for you, the viewer and subscriber, well, I know I still get comments from a lot of people who say, hey, I wrote this very nice statement saying, great show. How come my comment was deleted? That's not us. If I sat through and read every single comment, I'd probably go insane. Okay? And sometimes some comments, you know, yes, there are some hate comments here and there, but, you know, the automatic system will get it, right? But I see it getting worse the longer you have people who are going to be shooting off the hip here, because I'm all for the First Amendment. But mark my words, folks, there is a hammer coming down. The YouTube AI algorithm is that first swing down. Then there's going to be another one and another one and another one, and pop, 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 pop. You ain't going to be saying anything here anytime soon. And if you think I'm joking, you have been paying attention.